I always think that knitting is basically only two types of stitch, knitting and purling. And once you've mastered those two manoeuvres, you can knit anything. So purling is in a way knitting reversed. It's very straightforward once you get the hang of it, but there are two main differences you need to remember. Firstly, your yarn is always at the front of your work. And secondly, you insert the knitting needle in your right hand from the back to the front of your working stitch, and this is known as purlwise. So, with your knitting in your left hand, bring your yarn to the front of your work, and then insert your right needle into the front leg of the first stitch, and your right hand needle is going in from the back towards you. This is the part where it's very important that you've already brought your wool to the front. It's very easy to accidentally form extra loops by going over your needle, so yarn at the front before you get your right needle involved. When your needles cross over to form an X, take the wool in your right hand and wrap it around the back of your right needle, so between the needles and then up to the left in an anti-clockwise direction. Holding onto your wool, pull your right needle down and catch the loop behind it. Then slide that first stitch off your left needle. And you've now done your first purl stitch. Here it is again. Yarn at the front, insert your right needle into the front leg of the first stitch on your left needle, from back to front. Wrap your wool around the back of that front needle, and then pull your right needle down and catch the loop of wool behind it, and then slide the stitch off your left needle. As I said earlier, purling can be seen as the opposite to knitting, and once you've mastered these two stitches, you can create a variety of patterns and textures in your work. Just remember, yarn to the front of the work before you start purling, or you could end up with an extra twisted stitch, and always push your right needle from the back to the front. If you knit every row, you end up with garter stitch. If you alternate between knitting one row and then purling the next, you get this flat kind of knitting known as stocking stitch, or stockinette in the US. You can see the rows which have been knitted, the stitch is pushed backwards and forms little rows or chevrons, whereas the purl stitch pushes the wool to the front and makes these ridges. You can also alternate on a row between knitting and purling to create a rib effect. This has been made with knit 2, purl 2. And moss stitch or seed stitch is just knitting and purling alternately. There's so much you can do with knitting and purling.